Hey, greetings everyone. It's GleeCon, and I'm back again, bringing you another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thanks for tuning in. On our last episode, we continued our wrap-up, our mop-up of the Barrens. I think we're just about done. We probably have about one episode left, and then we'll be fully done now that we're concentrating. And I gotta say, it's given me a lust for playing the game. Like, it was starting to get so much juggling that even I was losing sight of the end game. So it just makes you feel like the progress is happening a little bit more as we bust out these zones. So I was tempted to, I'm like, man, I might be back into some of these, making more than one episodes a day, just so I can get to playing some. But time, the march of time, the drum of time, the beat of time marches on, whatever that saying is. We've also been reading through the World of Warcraft Official Magazine, a deep cut Lore of Warcraft channel deep cut here. This is a hard to find magazine. We're on the second issue of the first volume. It's a quarterly magazine. We've read a couple parts of this one. On the last one, we talked about dragons. It was a cool lore heavy one. And now stay a while and listen as we get into another article or two. This one is going to be about what, when Cataclysm was about to drop at the time of this, we're probably less than a year out, maybe 6 months or so out from it dropping. When this issue came out, and they're saying, hey, these are the things that are going to disappear, so you better see it. Little did we know that World of Warcraft Classic would bring them back to us, which is cool. Visit the Old World Before It's Gone by Cody. Bye! Helping wave bye to some of these zones or things. Azeroth faces an impending cataclysm and the return of Deathwing, and many original zones will be forever altered by the tumultuous event. With World of Warcraft's doomsday clock just a few minutes from midnight, we take a look at the world as we know it and select some of the most iconic places to visit and quests to run before they're changed or disappear forever altogether. Supplemented with comments from players in the community at wowhead.com, an official World of Warcraft fan site, about what makes these sites and events so special. So first of all, Orgrimmar was due for quite a change. There's a picture of Thrall. This is Kilargo makes the comment, walking into Orgrimmar for the first time as my orc shaman and seeing all these other characters of varying levels and gear ready to defend against anything, along with the rugged splendor of the city itself, gave a sense that they have finally found a place to call home. While each capital city in Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms will be receiving some architectural adjustments to account for flying mounts in Azeroth, Orgrimmar is set to see the biggest revision in Cataclysm. The black iron you've seen reinforcing the walls of Warsong Hold will now be coming to the stone structures of Orgrimmar, giving the city a menacing facelift, but that's just a superficial representation of what's going on inside. Don't be surprised to see the newly refurbished war-ready Orgrimmar populated by a legion of new NPCs and lacking a few notable characters. Thrall is moving out of Orgrimmar, and Garrosh Hellscream and his cohorts are moving in, while anyone who is not an Orc or Tauren will have to find somewhere else to hang out. Orgrimmar will represent a new face for the Orcs, and its warlike facade will show all of Azeroth that the Orcs are prepared to face the threat of Deathwing head-on. So take a spin around Orgrimmar and take a few pictures. It won't look like this for long. I wonder where they went, temporarily, like the trolls and the undead. The Barrens, obviously, was a big change. It's easy to imagine yourself as a lonely explorer in a big world. Sincerity comments on the old Barrens. When anyone asks me where to level, I always say 1 to 10 starting zone, 11 to 25 Barrens. It's a beautiful place. I've never been to Africa, and it makes me feel like I've been to Africa. I still love leveling there. I'll miss it. One thing people underrate is just how many goblins are in Africa. I mean, in the, savannah out there. Even today, the Barrens is a splendid hub of activity with 3 major settlements, a scattering of memorable quests, and 3 dungeons. The player population is active in the region. Raptors and centaurs are common sights, and the landscape is perhaps the vastest in the game. With sprawling plains nestled between soaring peaks, it's easy to imagine yourself as a lonely explorer in a big world. The Barrens will be receiving one of the most dramatic facelifts in Azeroth with Cataclysm, as an enormous rift in the ground brings violent changes to the region, as well as unexpected new life, growth, and fertility. Along with the transformation of the landscape, many quest lines will change or disappear. This could be your last chance to find Mancrick's wife, or get that darn Samaflange fixed. I think those are still there. Thousand Needles is going to undergo a huge change. Torkel says, Test of Faith is a very simple quest in Thousand Needles. Simple after you've done it, I should say. Just jump off this mesa. What? Are you kidding me? Wow, that's a long way down. Oh, this is going to hurt. That's got to be one of the most changed regions. Kalisha says, I've never seen anything beyond the edge of the Barrens before, and when I got my ghost wolf form, I decided to remedy that. I had no idea what lay beyond, so I followed the trails I could and did my best to dodge the local wildlife. I found a path winding its way up the side of a cliff and decided to see where it would lead me. Coming around a bend near the top, I had to stop and take in the view. The sun was just disappearing over the edge of the rock towers, all light above and shadow in the canyons below. That was the first time I looked around and thought to myself, this game is really beautiful. And there are tons of times where you feel that. And they even get that going now. Players who've been to Thousand Needles often have one of two memories in their minds. Either they spent a significant chunk of time killing the harpies and other animals and collecting the eggs and other items that littered the zone, or they remember the Test of Faith quest. Before Cataclysm, players will definitely want to take a tour around the zone to give it a final look before everything changes. When Deathwing returns, the zone will be flooded, and almost every portion of the area will be rearranged and altered, from the Mirage Raceway on the Shimmering Flats to the Silithid-infested Rustmaw dig site to the Centaur encampments dotting the canyon floor. Anything in those low-lying areas will simply cease to exist the way they were before. Some of the NPCs may even be caught in the floodwaters, never to be seen on the face of Azeroth again. Okay, Azshara, major changes. It should come as no surprise if the goblins dismantle or destroy parts of the region. We know that they will. Etchuir says, if you've never done it, start off every morning for 4 weeks straight by waking up at dawn to run around Azshara plucking the dream foil. The serenity will take you away, even if a few random bear men do start chasing you. This large zone has so much to find, it could take a very, very long time before you discover everything, but that's good, because the fall colors are just beautiful to watch roll past. You can almost feel the gentle breeze. Ultima says, I only left a small part of it, the Ravencrest Monument. If the goblins touch this piece of art, I will personally kill every last one of them and raid their towns on a daily basis. I spent many hours just sitting on the statue's eyebrow. Out of all the zones listed in our tribute to the old Azeroth, an area that's receiving one of the largest facelifts is Azshara. The release of Cataclysm will spell the complete metamorphosis of the region thanks to the immigration of the Bilgewater Cartel goblins and their efforts to shape the region into their new home. Originally, Azshara existed as a mid to high level zone that sported a different sort of atmosphere from most of Azeroth. Its fall-like colors and interesting assortment of natural inhabitants made it a refreshing change from the colors of most zones, but its location and relative shortage of questlines caused this area to be among the least populated in the entire game, making it a great candidate for a cataclysmic overhaul. One of the most popular NPCs in the zone is the Elemental Lord Duke Hydraxis, who was one of the original quest givers surrounding Ragnaros and the Molten Core. Over at the Azshara Tower, you can have a chat with Archmage Xylem, who assists mages and rogues. Lord Arkarok, Lormis Thalipides, and Ogtink also inhabit the area, so players may wish to spend a few moments collecting and completing all of their quests, in case they disappear from the world forever. I do look forward for when we get there. I don't know that I ever really did a lot in classic Azshara. The goblins are notorious for bending nature to their will, and the geography of Azshara will be no exception. After building their city into an Azsharan cliffside, the goblins will carve out a new quarry for their raw resources over in the Azshara crater, and it should come as no surprise if the goblins decide to dismantle or destroy other parts of Azshara as well. As we know they do, they make a huge port. Some of the greatest stories of Azeroth wind through the gloomy Plaguelands. The Plaguelands, I guess, will change. Rasta Akana says, seeing how devastated Anderhall and Stratholm had become from the events in Warcraft 3 to World of Warcraft was jaw-dropping. Also, the quest lines, notably the ones dealing with the Fordrings and the Red Paths, were rich with lore and backstory. They are. Wings of Sion says the Battle of Darrowshire is bar none the most epic in-game event still available. Regardless of how useful the end rewards are in-game, it's one of the few chains that actually has a good chunk of lore and involves you in the history of the game and what went down during the time of the Scourge taking the Plaguelands. Yeah, it's a great zones. The western and eastern Plaguelands have always been zones of note due to their initial high-end level range and gloomy atmosphere, but anyone who cares a whit about Warcraft's lore will find the Plaguelands steeped with ruins, vanquished dreams, and heroes that are tied into significant moments in Azeroth's history. But with so much of the Plaguelands populated by heroes who would eventually make a run on Icecrown Citadel and Northrend, it's almost inevitable that a solid chunk of them will be moving, and with them, their epic questlines. Perhaps the most notable example would be the Alliance's Tyrion Fordring, who seeks to wipe the Scourge from the face of Azeroth. In pursuit of this goal, he eventually rose to meet the challenge of Icecrown Citadel and played a key role in the fall of the Lich King. With Tyrion's quest seemingly at an end and the Scourge forces under a degree of control, Will he continue to patrol the areas in the Plaguelands, or will he turn his attention elsewhere, perhaps to quell the threat of Deathwing? There are a number of other NPCs, locations, and questlines throughout the Plaguelands that players may want to check out before the Cataclysmic expansion. High on our list, the Bronze Dragon Chronormu, aka Chromie, and the associated time-bending quests at Anderhall, aiding Commander Ashlam Valorfist in his fight against the Scourge and Caretaker Alan, if only for some comic relief. Okay, Aberdeen changes a lot, that's true. Ilanthe says, the first time I stepped off the boat that goes from Teldrassil to Aberdeen and Darkshore, I was running down the dock, looked over, and saw a level 13 crab. I freaked out. My immediate thought was, oh god, I'm going to die horribly here. I handed in the delivery quest and turned right back around to grind out 2 more levels on cats and spiders in Teldrassil. I was so convinced I wouldn't be able to handle the area, and I can't believe I was so scared for the safety of my poor little druid. The return of Deathwing will bring the complete destruction of the city of Aberdeen in northern Kalimdor. Although Aberdeen already had a gloomy feeling throughout its lifespan in World of Warcraft, it still stood as one of the few safe havens in the lands of Darkshore, but compared to the peace and serenity felt in other Night Elf-laden places like Darnassus, this city nestled on the coast of Darkshore oozed desolation. We'll still be able to visit the remnants of Aberdeen and Darkshore. We got a sneak peek of this in the Cataclysm trailer, but the remaining Night Elf population and their respective travel points will be moved to a new location in northern Darkshore. Before Aberdeen is crushed, however, many of us will want to take part in its final days. If you have the time, make sure you have a chat with Bundress Windreaver, learn to fish with Gubber Blump, or help Whizbang Crank Toggle with his buzz boxes. And a lot of those still exist in some form. Stranglethorn Vale will change and be separated, but changes coming to the coast and outposts like Gromgall will feel the pressure. Actually, they made this zone less of a grind. Some of it was crazy. But you know what? It's those things that you remember. Some of the most grindy, frustrating quests are the ones that stick with me the longest. The Onyx says the combination of the landscape and quests just fit for some reason. The quests were bunched up enough that I felt like you were actually making a significant impact on each part of the zone as you rolled through it. For a time, Stranglethorn was easily one of World of Warcraft's most hotly contested zones. With its 2-faction makeup and convenient PvPing locations, many adventurers met their demise at the hands of high-level players. However, the design of the zone allowed players to quickly and easily gather quests and then complete them in long tours throughout the jungle, killing basilisks, Bloodsail Buccaneers, or the tribal trolls that spotted the region. With the emergence of Deathwing causing tidal waves to batter the coastlands of both Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms, Booty Bay and the Horde outpost of Gromgall will face some serious natural pressures. Before the devastation strikes, players may want to check out some of the more iconic areas throughout the Vale. Completing the Bloodsail quests from Baron Revelgaz and Fleetmaster Seahorn is a kick, especially when Seahorn sports his own pirate hat and cutlass. Who would have thought a Tauren could make a fitting swashbuckler? Perhaps the most iconic individual in Stranglethorn is Hemet Nessingwary Jr., who wants sturdy entrepreneurs to join his expedition to find rare and exotic animals throughout the Vale. Nessingwary Jr. is actually the replacement for his father, who has since moved on to Outland and Northrend to hunt bigger game, but the quests are still a memorable part of the Stranglethorn experience. Yeah, and I'm Nessingwary. I mean, our character is the OG. Beyond the characters and quests in the region, players have long considered Stranglethorn Vale to be one of the most beautiful zones in Azeroth. Its lush green jungles and pirate-dotted coastlines were fitting reminders that the evils that have plagued Azeroth haven't destroyed everything, though the zone still has its own problems, including goblin deforestation attempts and violent troll attacks. And Nereus says, even though it's annoying to get occasionally drive-by ganked by higher-level characters while trying to quest, it inspired some awesome spontaneous group PvP moments as players would rally together to fight off the bully or call in some high-level guildies of their own to protect them. So, last chance to see a couple other little things. The Greymane Wall, built to isolate... Well, I mean, it's still there. Built to isolate the Gilneans from the rest of their human brethren, the Greymane Wall has stood as an impassive testament to the will of Genn Greymane and his people. Following the Second War, the Gilneans erected the wall to remove themselves from the conflicts of their brethren, and as a result, separated themselves from the coming threat of the plague. However, the Worgen curse proved to be just as costly to the secluded humans. With their feral rage in check, the Gilneans have decided to once more step beyond the bounds of their wall, and their inner change is reflected in the outer structure of their once impregnable stone facade. The opening of the wall's gates will only be one part of the entire makeover. The architectural styling of Gilneas will shape the new look of the wall, giving it touches of wooden fortifications and accents. The infamous Hogger, what? He's not still there? Few enemies have garnered as much publicity as the elite Riverpaw Knoll known as Hogger, especially enemies that are no match for high-level players, but Hogger continues to defy the odds. He succeeded in appearing as a level 80 monster in the Trial of the Champion, even if he was just an illusion, and earned 24th place in a GamePro article depicting the most diabolical video game villains of all time. Just because pretty much everyone on the Alliance has to kill him. Hogger's most memorable antics didn't come through his actions, but via the players who were looking for a bit of fun. Hogger raids saw full 40-player contingents of first-level characters swarming over one another to do their minuscule damage to the elite level 11 monster. Often these raids would end in a total player wipe, and this Hogger became infamous as an invincible foe. That's pretty funny. I think actually they end up throwing him in the stocks in Cataclysm. All right, so that was one article. Let's read another feature. It's called Resetting. Cataclysm is going to rock World of Warcraft, and here's the hard evidence. See Azeroth as no one has seen it before. Oh, resetting the scene. My bad. Deathwing's return in the upcoming Cataclysm expansion will cause drastic changes to the World of Warcraft landscape. There's a reason we've recommended visits to parts of the old world. We just read it. Waters will rise, land masses will split, greenery will flourish, and lava will flow, but words are cheap. So it's time to let some pictures do the talking. In Gadgetstan, this is post-Cataclysm Gadgetstan. Yeah, the ocean's right up against it now. Now a beachfront property in what was once a bone-dry part of Tanaris. Bring your fishing pole. Cataclysm will bring drastic change to the landscape. In the Barrens, it becomes a war zone. The fighting between Horde and Alliance is broken out in full on the top. The region is split into two parts by the opening of this rift in the lower left. And Wailing Caverns can be seen on the right. Maybe here. Or maybe it's actually on the next page, probably. Durotar in the lower right. Water creeps in south of Orgrimmar. Lost. On the left is Farwatch Post, next to the bridge over the South Fury River. And there's Thousand Needles is now at that port. Stormwind has a little bit of an updated look. The Blasted Lands. The water and greenery make the southwest corner of the Blasted Lands unrecognizable. Thousand Needles to the top left. Yeah, we just saw that. The racers at the Shimmering Flats find themselves adrift. Rising waters have submerged the track, forcing everyone to pack up and climb aboard this barge. And in Stormwind, the city is massively overhauled to accommodate flying mounts, and the keep is getting a completely different layout. More than skin deep, these pictures show just part of how the Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor are changing for Cataclysm. What you can't see is the massive behind-the-scenes reworking that will allow players to use flying mounts throughout the old world, be ready to take wind, and basically be ready for like invisible barriers. All right, we saw this. This is an advice column about probably Baron Geddon. This was alluded to in the table of contents a couple episodes back. 40 to the power of 3 raids revisited with 20 added levels. A dedicated few could go where 40 once feared to tread. Heck, a lot of things, there's almost nothing more fun than figuring out how to like gank the system and one man a lot of raids. I will say some of my favorite self-made imposed challenges were like going back and raiding the Legion dungeons at the height of Shadowlands power, just going back to do the raids and one man pretty much all of, I think I one man them all. The only raid you can't really one man all the time is Icecrown Citadel, because there's a part where you have to heal. So unless you're a healing character, you can't. Like as my rogue, I couldn't 1 minute. Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, the Temple of Anchorage. Once upon a time, these immense strongholds were domains of fear, places where it was foolish to enter with the help of 39 of your closest friends. And even then, safety in numbers was not necessarily guaranteed, since a miscalculation or misstep by any raid member could result in devastating and deadly consequences for his or her teammates. While it's easy to view World of Warcraft's early 40-player raid dungeons as a curiosity from years past, they still provide a potentially fun and engaging challenge to those who believe that they and a few of their friends have the power to succeed, where it once took a raiding party of 40. A couple of friends are all you'll need to tackle the challenges in this guide, which looks at how an army of 3, a tank, a healer, and a DPS, can take down some of World of Warcraft's most notorious bosses. Excuse me. It goes without saying that you probably won't want to tackle these instances with just 3 people if you're all under 80, and even then freshly minted level 80s with basic gear might not be enough to avoid a quick and painful death at the hands of World of Warcraft's baddest old school bosses. So definitely don't be afraid to bring a few extra people along if you don't feel confident or don't have a lot of dungeon experience. Ultimately, the objective is to have fun, not put you and your friends through the ringer. With that in mind, here's our guide to a 3-player or more Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, and Temple of Encourage. As an additional bonus, we'll also tell you how to run your team of 3 through the 2 big World of Warcraft 20-player instances, the Ruins of Encourage and Zul'Gurub. Enjoy. This is actually kind of neat. You want to battle the fiery Baron Geddon away from his friends and near a high ceiling. So Baron Geddon in the Molten Core. Oh, Molten Core, World of Warcraft's initial big-time endgame dungeon, is still a formidable task for those looking to reduce their party size from 40 to 3. You can run into Molten Core the long way, past the entirety of Blackrock Depths, or you can complete Lothos Riftwalker's attunement to the core questline and then speak to him to warp you into the raid dungeon at a whim. The choice is yours. Baron Geddon is one of the constant sources of amusement and heartache in World of Warcraft. Either way, you're in for a long haul. His total health hovers around 600,000, which is nothing now. Regular mobs can have in the millions in Dragonflight. And his abilities make him a formidable foe if you engage him in the open. Tip number 1, lure him to an area with a low ceiling. Geddon's most potent ability that even level 80s should be cognizant of is called Living Bomb. As the name suggests, this effect, which can't be dispelled by a caster, transforms you or an unwary friend into a walking countdown to doom. The bomb takes 10 seconds to explode. It's not so much the 3,200 blast damage that hurts the most. Be prepared to take additional falling damage upon your character's harsh return to the ground. Back in the day, Living Bomb was the bane of many raiders. How many of you can raise your hand and admit to being one of those poor unfortunates who took half the raid because they couldn't move quickly enough? Luckily, it should be easier to avoid an old school wipe this time around. Just when you think you've almost put Geddon to bed, you'll see a final message appear on your screen. Baron Geddon performs one last service for Ragnaros. Kill him quickly or face the wrath of an 8,500 or more damage attack to anyone within melee range. Talk about a parting gift. So, other notable Molten Core encounters. Luciferon. You'll be able to resist the mind control ability of Luciferon's guards, but be wary of his curse that doubles the mana or rune cost of your spells and abilities. Gehennas. His curse effect can be very annoying as it reduces your party's heals for 75% for 5 minutes. Burst damage is your friend. Gar, don't ignore his Fire-Sworn friends. At the end of the fight, Gar commands them to explode for 1850 to 2150 fire damage each. Major Domo Executus. A friendly reminder, you're not killing Executus himself, you're killing his guards. Tank the major baddie and make sure you're eliminating everyone else in the process. And Ragnaros, the actual boss. If you're not decked out in great gear, you may want to bring along an extra sword or mace, as Ragnaros' melt weapon ability hurts the durability of your weapon with each hit. Beyond that, be wary of his Hammer of Ragnaros ability, summoned with the cry of, by fire be purged. Try to position yourself so you land in the lava after his knockback to avoid taking too much fall damage. Imagine lava being preferable to landing. Darth Vader wouldn't agree. Other than that, you'll want to keep a melee fighter in range of Ragnaros at all times, lest you suffer the Fire Lord's Magma Blast spell. In addition, he'll duck down under the lava after 3 minutes of fighting, summoning 8 Sons of Flame to keep you busy. Their mana burn ability is more annoying than detrimental, so try to keep them away from your primary healer. Okay, so Razor Gore, the main, threat within Blackwing Lair. Razor Gore looks tough now, but he'll soon be at your beck and call thanks to the Orb of Domination. Blackwing Lair, released as part of the Assault on Blackwing Lair patch 1.6 content update in July of 2005, requires an attunement prior to entry unless you feel like running almost the entirety of Upper Blackrock Spire Dungeon each time you want to try to take on this epic instance. Start your process by killing the Scarshield Quartermaster near the Blackrock Spire instance portal. He'll drop a letter that suggests you pay a visit to General Drakaseth, the final boss of Upper Blackrock Spire. Defeat him and you can touch Drakaseth's brand located directly behind the boss, which enables you to use the Orb of Command near the Upper Blackrock Spire entrance to warp yourself directly into Blackwing Lair whenever you wish. Congratulations, you've stumbled across a boss that's simply unkillable as a party of one. Blackwing Lair's first major baddie, Razor Gore, requires you to understand the strategies for the fight to a T. This isn't your average tank and spank. In the first phase, kill Razor Gore's controllers and send your tank to click on the nearby Orb of Domination. This time the mission is to guide Razor Gore around the room, smashing all the eggs. While this is happening, heavy-hitting Blackwing Legionnaires, Blackwing Mages, and Blackwing Dragonkin will proceed to spawn in the four corners of the room. They'll attempt to swarm you and inflict death by 1,000 nicks, so stay alert and blast the swarms before you get overrun. Before you destroy the last egg, Make sure your tank is doing the controlling, because once all the eggs are destroyed, Razorgore will come after whomever was controlling him when the last egg was cracked. Be wary of his Conflagration spell. It not only hurts, it also confuses and removes aggro from anyone it affects. Otherwise, treat this as a normal boss fight and blast into pieces. Other notable encounters in Blackwing Lair: Veilastraz the Corrupt. You have 3 minutes to kill this boss before the essence of the red, essentially unlimited mana energy rage runic powder, runs out, and someone in your party will suffer from Veilastraz's burning adrenaline. This blasts your health down by 5% each second, leaving you little time to kill the dragon before you're off to the Spirit Healer. 20 seconds, yeah. Chromagus, this ability-shifting boss, blasts your entire party with afflictions. Get rid of them quickly, lest they overpower your 3-person party and turn you into Draconids. Nefarian, the final boss of Blackwing Lair, used to give players a great deal of trouble, but now that you're level 80, this fight has turned into a tank-based beatdown. Use area of effect attacks to deal with summoned Draconids in the first phase. Nefarian's invulnerable until you deal with his summoned cohorts. Other than that, try to avoid getting nailed with Nefarian's Shadow Flame. It won't kill you outright, but the last thing you need is for your entire party of 3 to get hit with its direct damage and damage over time effects. Rocking an Onyxia Scale Cloak prevents the latter. Position Nefarian correctly, keep your non-tanks behind his throne, so 2/3 of your group can stay roughly out of harm's way, and you'll be set for a long but satisfying battle. Alright, and the last one that they'll do is to get familiar with Burns area, because you'll be running all over it. The Buru's area. Buru the Gorger, the Ruins of Encourage. Simply dishing out damage won't be enough to down Buru. The 20-player Ruins of Encourage raid was one of 2 large dungeons made available to players after the realm worked together to open the gates of Encourage. Nowadays, the door is always open to any intrepid adventurers willing to tackle these insect-filled dungeons. Buru the Gorger, an entirely skippable boss if you're just trying to get to the end of the ruins, requires a more creative solution than simply dishing out the damage. In the first phase of the battle, Buru chases a random player. He gradually speeds up over the course of 60 seconds until he's able to overtake that person. When that happens, he starts to hit with a stacking bleed effect, Dismember, that can kill anyone regardless of level or ability if said player is affected by too many stacks. As he's chasing his target, your other party members need to start focus firing on the various eggs scattered around Buru's lair. To kill Buru, you need to get him to walk over an egg at the moment it's destroyed, which stuns him and takes off a chunk of his health. He'll shed his shell around 20% of his health, which gives you roughly 30 seconds to finish him off for good. If you don't, the poison damage from a growing damage over time effect will do you in. And notable encounters in the Ruins of Encourage: Kuranax. Avoid the sand trap of Encourage's first boss, or you'll find yourself subject to a nasty silence that could put your 3-party person in a bit of peril. If anyone dies in the fight, you won't be able to run back into the area, so stay on your toes. Iamus the Hunter, kill the grubs seriously. If a Hive Zara larva reaches anyone that's been shackled to this boss's altar, that character is 100% dead. Osirian the Unscarred. Although this encounter can be done without activating the crystals that disable Osirian's Supreme Mode attacks, this fight will go more smoothly if you use them. The crystals, when activated, rip away Osirian's ability to deal massive damage, slow him down, and make him vulnerable to certain types of spell damage. It's a great bonus, but it only lasts for 45 seconds. Make sure you're pulling him toward the next crystal while you're whacking him senseless. Osirian also comes with a knockback area of effect spell that will send you flying about 30 yards away from your original location, which can be a bit annoying for characters channeling spells against the baddie. Bunch up your party to ensure that you all land in the same place, else an errant trip on Osirian Airlines might put your tank and your healer on completely opposite ends of the battle. Okay? Alright, the Prophet Skirim will have you seeing triple as the fight progresses. I think you fight that guy basically in Outland as well, in Arcatraz. The Prophet Skirim, the Temple of Encourage. Excuse me. The more daunting sister instance to the Ruins of Encourage, the 40-player Temple of Encourage, runs a dramatic difficulty scale. Portions of it are roughly as hard as some of the tougher bosses in Molten Core, whereas the later elements of the dungeon are easily worse than the foes faced in Blackwing Lair. Nature protection potions will be your friend in this mega instance, which features 9, 10 if you count the Twin Emperors as 2 separate entities, different baddies to fight. Why Why is nature resistance important in the Temple of Encourage? Look no further than the dungeon's first boss, the Prophet Scarum, for the answer. You'll want to make sure you're properly positioned for this encounter, as Scarum splits into 3 Scarums 3 times during the fight with his health reaches 75%, 50%, and 25%. Why is that bad? If you've gotten the attention of a Scarum but aren't in melee range of him, he'll begin casting Earth Shocks every second until you run up next to him. Get off. I'm sorry. I'm getting congested all of a sudden here. Get all 3 Scarums running Earthshock, and you're looking at a seriously uphill battle that will tax your healer to the max. At level 80, you should be able to avoid attracting the attention of more than 1 Scarum at a time. Focus fire, but be careful. Other Scarums can blink and stack on top of your current target if luck isn't on your side. Don't forget about Scarum's mind control ability. This is one reason why soloing the boss can be easier than fighting him with a small party. Notable Temple of Encourage encounters is Fancris the Unyielding, the 3rd boss of the Temple of Encourage. Fancris the Unyielding is more of a misnomer. The true problems of this raid encounter are the spawn of Fancris that appear during the encounter. Kill them before they enrage. And the final boss, Cthulhu. The big boss comes with a few nasty surprises, including a red beam dark glare that can deliver up to 56,000 shadow damage to anyone who walks through it. Kill Cthulhu's spawn tentacles, as their abilities, including a hamstring attack, can make it more difficult to dodge Dark Glare. Phase 2 of the encounter includes 2 giant claw tentacles that spawn once per minute. Not only will you have to deal with these 90k hit point monsters, but you'll have to do so while members of your party are getting sucked into Cthulhu's stomach every 10 seconds. I remember doing this. Kill the flesh tentacles inside his gut to weaken him to attacks from up above, as this will drop his damage offsetting shield for 45 seconds. Look at this guy. Like a Naga-ish kind of thing. Zul'Grub. Clearing out the end boss of Zul'Grub, Hakar the Soul Flayer, that's who it is, it's Hakar, used to require you to dispatch his 5 other high priests and priestesses. With them alive, Hakar gains a significant number of extra abilities and health that would be enough to concern any average level 60 raid. However, if you're level 80, Hakar can be dispatched without having to touch a single one of his extra companions. It's just a little harder than doing it the conventional way. Hakar comes with a few annoying tricks, including a 10-second mind control and an 8-second heal cast every 90 seconds. That drains a total of 8,000 health from the party. If your damage output isn't great, then you might face Hakar's Enrage ability, which kicks in after 10 minutes of fighting. If that happens, he's going to inflict massive damage on your party until either you or he is dead. But really, if you stay calm and have good damage output from your tank and damage dealer, this fight shouldn't be too challenging. And if it is, go blast the rest of the bosses. None of them are particularly difficult to deal with at level 80, showing you how far your 20 extra levels and Wrath of the Lich King gear have taken you. It's true. Okay, so I was considering about picking up one extra episode. It's going to be about pugging, and they're going to keep showing pictures of pugs throughout. But honestly, my throat's getting a little raw, so we're going to put it off to the next episode. Going to have to bow out on this one, but that was cool. We looked at a couple articles. We saw some changes going on. We're probably about like 40% of the way through this issue. Thank you, everyone. We have another episode in the pipe, 5x5. You know I appreciate you. I really do. Thanks for watching, for tuning in, for helping me make my hobby and share it with the world. See you next time on Lore of Warcraft.